people. The Italians love the chilies. I don't know whether it's real Italian, but it was a chili minestrone soup. So the basis is basically your normal seasonal veggies like onion and leeks and um, ginger, no, not ginger, garlic and celery. I even add the celery leaves, and then you add to that, you add some butternut, and you can also add some baby potatoes and a tomato paste. So not real a tomato, can of tomatoes and tomato paste. The Italians love tomatoes. So that's what we add. And then chili flakes, that was a add-on to that. And some veggie stock. And eventually after it was cooked through, we added fresh green beans and broccoli. Just a little bit of florets of broccoli. And the main thing there is that the beans and the broccoli should not be boiled to blue. You want it fresh and crisp. So right at the end, when I opened the pressure cooker, I added some of the beans and the broccoli just on top of that. And then we added a fresh chopped parsley when you serve it. So it is a meat-free one. It's really lovely and it has a different texture than all the other soups that you blend. It is chunks of veggies. There's also carrots in that. Tomatoes and carrots is the basis of all Italian foods and onions. So that was quite a lovely, refreshing soup. So I will share that recipe with you tomorrow. Send it out to the group with the recording. So Jan, I will send it to you as well, so that you can try that. But welcome to tonight for Ian. Ian is he's a teacher at the private school and as well as a life coach. And just a little bit of a story of Ian. I'm very thankful for him because he made the biggest difference in my youngest daughter's life since she started working. Her boyfriend was at him with his life coaching, and he said to her, "Now you need a life coach," and that was one of the best decisions he made in her life. And thanks to you, you took her through quite some um, ask her difficult questions. That's usually what he does, and then she come back to me and she takes it out on me. So one of the main things that she did was, "Mom, are you ready to feel uncomfortable?" And I knew that was his question. But I've learned a lot as well. And Ian is really a excellent life coach. So if anybody needs a life coach, I will send his details at the end. But it is, I believe every person needs a life coach nowadays. And he's not only a life coach for young people, but all ages. And I asked Ian just before the meeting, what is your ideal client? And Ian, you said it so well. So Ian, please tell us, what's your ideal client again? That phrase that you used was so beautiful.
So thank you, Ilse, for the kind words and the welcome. I think that my ideal client is simply someone who feels ready and willing to open them up to open themselves up to the fullness of life, and to really completely and fully engage with the way life presents itself, and that'll lead into the conversation tonight as well. So that's definitely
Thanks.
my ideal client.
Okay, great. So tonight, Ian is going to talk to us about romanticizing the ordinary, to make the most of life, what happens between the highlights and it's worth slowing down for. And since we are entering winter, I think slow down is such a good word for me as well. So, Ian, you have the table. You can go forward. We are excited to listen to you.
Thanks, Ilse. So in a way, this conversation might as well have been called the diary of a young man struggling to live in the moment. Because as you'll see, as we progress through the conversation, so much of what I'll be sharing is really a reflection of my own life's journey so far, So um, slowing down and asking some difficult questions about the quality of my own life and the quality of my own life experience. And I know that everybody on this group is busy with some kind of remarkable journey, because if you are on this call, I think you are or you have been doing work with Light to Live. So I want to acknowledge the journey that you are currently on. And because it's such a personal and passionate topic for me, I can only hope that it's going to be something that will supplement the really beautiful journey that you are already on. So please, yeah, feel free to disregard if anything doesn't sit well or fit for you. And if anything feels that it resonates, I hope that it can mean something for you. So let's begin with success, because I want to build a kind of voice, not necessarily against a busy and a full and a highlights driven life, but I want to build a case through 2 or 3 main themes here. And I would like to begin with success, because apparently it's never been easier to be successful than in 2026. It's never been easier to have a successful day than in 2026. All you need to do, and I'm going to have a little list here, see if some of these sound familiar. All you need to do, let me take a deep breath, is wake up at 5, hydrate immediately, no caffeine for the first 90 minutes, journal, meditate, set your goals, set your intentions for the day, and stretch. Get some sun in your eyes, hit the gym, take your protein shake, read 10 pages of something life-changing. Build your side hustle, track your habits, be grateful, stay present, have a spiritual practice, have some hobbies. Don't doom scroll, but also, stay on top of your messages and emails. Go to sleep by 10 p.m. at the latest. By then, you must have had your last coffee by 2 p.m. in the morning, so I'm already guilty there. Make sure that you then get 8 to 9 hours of uninterrupted, high-quality sleep in a cool, dark, quiet room. And then people somehow also show up, do your actual job, prepare meals, connect with loved ones, be a good parent, take care of the kids, be a good spouse, make sure the house isn't a complete mess, and also protect your peace. Don't get stressed too much. And listen, the things on this list can be so beneficial. And I don't know about you, but I try to incorporate many of them into my life on a daily basis. But I bet if we brainstorm together for about 5 to 10 minutes, this list can easily double in size or even triple. And what starts off feeling like an energizing and life-giving to-do list for the beginning of a day, throughout the day, can quickly become confusing, overwhelming, and just plain stressful. And I also noticed that the same voices telling us what a great day in 2026 looks like is very quick to give us a blueprint for the perfect life, the right way, the correct way to live life. And you know the list. We've all received the memo, and with a slight tweak here and there, the list sounds something like this. And once again, feel free to add your own version of this. Something like figuring out who you are and what you want to do with the rest of your life as soon as possible. We are told what kind of careers to pursue, when to get married, how many kids to have, and how to raise those kids. Be financially responsible. Make sure that you save enough money for retirement, but also take risks. Buy a house, have a few rental units, spend as much money making as many memories as possible. But focus on your career, get promoted, climb the corporate ladder, but also travel, slow down, take care of your body, grow spiritually, spend as much time as possible with your loved ones, because isn't that what really matters? And through all of this, take care of the environment, help other people, find your purpose, and don't stress too much. Don't take any of this too seriously. Once again, I think if we brainstorm together, we could easily double or triple this list. So many voices, so many opinions. And yes, with an abundance of knowledge and devices and technological innovations, I think it really has never been easier to be successful than in 2026. But you know what else has never been easier? Distraction, decision fatigue, overwhelm, overstimulation. People, it's never been easier to see what is going on in everybody's lives around you. To then feel behind, even if it's an illusion, to feel behind, and to then feel rushed to catch up with them, whoever they are, and you can ask that question for yourself now. Who are they in my life? And a face and a name might probably pop up in your mind. It becomes really, really easy, because we feel behind, to become super focused on the next thing. People, and that's my first theme. And that's also my story. I've become, and this is a story of so much of my own lower quality of life experience. I became so focused on the next thing, the next milestone, the next achievement, the next version of myself, even the next season or chapter. People, the next thing to do that day consumed my focus and my attention. The next thing that would finally make me feel like I'm keeping up with the Joneses, whoever the Joneses are. I almost said keep up with the Kardashians. I don't want to keep up with the Kardashians. Whoever the Joneses are in my world, or even to make me feel like I'm enough. And I became so busy with my mind and with my hands. I became so busy with the things of life, managing the logistics of doing life, that at times, sadly, I forgot what it even felt like to be alive, to experience life. Moving so much, but so disconnected with being alive. And I had to face an important question. Why do we do this? And by we, I really mean me. And feel free to include yourself in the story if it is you. But for now, once again, just a reflection on my own journey. Why do we do this? Why do we rush through life? Mentally absent, missing out on so many different aspects of being alive, constantly on the way to the next thing. And here, I think there are so many different answers. We can blame shift, or we can make arguments for the goodness of it, or we can, point fingers and give all kinds of reasons. But for the sake of this conversation, and for the sake of my case, my story is, I noticed, when I look honestly at my life, I noticed that I was chasing feelings. I wasn't really chasing the thing itself. I was chasing the feeling I thought the thing would give me. I was really chasing good feelings all the time. Whatever they are, comfort or pleasure or a sense of, a sense of positive well-being. I was chasing feelings. And, there are a few typical examples of it. When I say I was chasing feelings and not the things, say, for example, money in my world, it was never about more money or a higher salary. It was what the higher salary and the money represented to me, So money in my mind would have led to peace of mind, sense of security, freedom, even control, sense of control. People have always been caught up with due dates and deadlines and assignments. And for me, completing the due date in the assignment didn't necessarily lead to growth for me. What it led to was, now I can finally relax. As soon as I can get to the thing that I needed to get the deadline done, then I can relax. I wasn't really chasing a good looking body by spending so many hours working and wasting time in the gym. Not necessarily wasting time, but spending so many hours in the gym, building a good looking body. And, a part of me wanted to justify that by saying it's all about fitness and health and movement. But it wasn't, If I'm honest, it was really about confidence. It was really about hoping to get some admiration from other people. The relationship that I was looking for, that I was reaching for, not necessarily love, not necessarily not love, but a shadow side of me wanted to be validated. a shadow side wanted to be, accepted. Because if someone accepts me, surely then that means I'm good enough. No, so constantly chasing feelings, constantly chasing the feeling that I thought the thing would give me. So I'd move on to the next thing, tick off the boxes. I'd move on to the next thing thinking, when I get there, then I'll feel alive. Then I'll feel comfortable. Then I'll feel like I can finally relax. Chasing these feelings around my entire life. Always looking for a good feeling. Always avoiding the bad feelings. But something strange kept happening. I would get there. And when I got there, when I got the thing, it would feel good. It would feel really good sometimes. But only for a while. And then the feeling would fade. Then life would quietly tap me on the shoulder and say, okay, Jan, so what's next? And instead of savoring, this sweet victory as promised by my previous thinking, instead of savoring the sweet victory of yet another milestone or achievement, I would be on the finish line and find myself with one foot already out the door, on the way to the next thing. Physically here in the flesh, present in the flesh, but already thinking, planning, wondering, worrying on the way to the next box that needed to be checked. I was spending so much time and energy and money sometimes trying to get somewhere, unable to even appreciate or celebrate or, sit in the victory of it for a moment. I was unable to experience the wins. So the goalposts kept moving. Even before I got there, the goalposts kept moving. And meanwhile, I was realizing that I was spending massive amounts of life running after the next thing, not present in the journey. And the analogy that came up for me while I was thinking about this, it's like sitting in a very fast, speeding bullet train. It's super comfortable. I'm going somewhere. The tracks are doing their job. Everything is running smoothly. All of a sudden, I look to my left, and I see a beautiful landscape flashing by. Forests, mountains, grass plains, even cities and cafes. And the sad reality for me was, even though I wanted to, I couldn't appreciate all of this because it was going past so fast. I couldn't stop, and the classic bumper sticker, I couldn't stop and smell the roses. I couldn't even look at a beautiful piece of landscape for long enough before it swished past. I couldn't get off and go sit at the cobblestone cafe and have a cup of coffee. Why? Because I'm going somewhere. I have an appointment to get to. This thing is moving. This thing is moving fast. I'm going to die if I try to get off this train. And even if I try to get off the train, I'm not the one in control here. Someone else is driving this thing. And that's another theme of my life. I'm out of control. This whole thing is running and I'm just sitting on this train. I can get off when the train stops, not on my terms. And I was asking myself, what if I was rushing through life? What if I was rushing through most of life on the way to moments I thought mattered more, while missing out on a lifetime of potentially precious moments in between? What if life isn't only in the big moments, in the highlights, but in all of the ordinary smaller spaces between them? Because if you think about it, where does most of life happen? Not the big moments. Most of life, at least in terms of quantity and sheer numbers, most of life doesn't happen on graduation day, your wedding day, the birth of your child, the holiday you've been waiting and working so long for. We spoke about feet in the sand before the rest of the people joined this conversation. Most of life, people, doesn't happen with the promotion that you have been working and waiting for. And don't get me wrong, these moments are incredible. The overseas trips, the beautiful family holidays, the birth of these moments are absolutely mind-blowing and incredible. But most of life, once again, sheer numbers, most of life doesn't happen in the social media moments. It happens in the thousands of ordinary and yet profound moments leading up to those highlight moments. Thousands of moments after the highlight moments. I mean, take a moment. Take a moment and think of one massive event in your life. Mine is the birth of my daughter. Pick a moment. When I think about the birth of my daughter, from the moment we were called into the hospital room for the procedure to begin, people, within 30 minutes, everything was over. But I want you to think about the 9 months of pregnancy before that, and the absolute roller coaster of life. You know, a whole lifetime of experiences take place just in the 9 months pre-birth. Not to mention the amount of months, maybe even years, that you and your spouse spent thinking, deliberating, planning, preparing for the birth of a child, and a lifetime of days and weeks and years post-birth. People, the amount of hours you sat at a desk studying for the upcoming test, countless of those full-nighters that you pulled to study for your degree. And then the pinnacle is walking over a stage with your little hat, and you wave for grandma, and someone in your family yells an inside joke, and it's a great day, and it really is a great day. But most of life doesn't happen in the highlights. It happens in the small ones, ordinary ones, boring ones, the uncomfortable ones, and the frustrating ones. People, the moments that accumulate over years to form the messy, beautiful, extraordinary experience we call life in its totality. The ones, this is an important thought, it happens in the moments, the ones that we don't necessarily think of as important enough to fully be immersed in. Think about the last month of your life. Think about the last year of your life. Just count, if you can, on your one hand or your two hands, how many big moments were there in the last year of your life? How many big moments were there? Versus, where did you spend most of your time? Most of life isn't always in the glamorous, the fabulous Instagram moments, the Instagrammable pedestal moments. People, most of life, and I want to read you a little list here. Most of life happens while working. It happens at home. Life happens while we are driving somewhere, making coffee, making breakfast in the morning. People, it happens while standing in a queue at the Department of Home Affairs, feeling like we waste another day. It happens while you work in your garden or do repetitive household chores. Just think about the amount of time in the last month or year that you've spent making food, folding laundry, answering emails, working on projects, work or at home, People, think about the amount of time you've spent thinking, worrying, thinking about a situation at work, replaying conversations, thinking about things that you should have done differently, planning. Just the amount of time, if you had to put it on a clock, think about the amount of time you spent thinking about life, having conversations, brushing your teeth, taking a shower. Most of life happens while working, waiting, wandering, and oftentimes while wasting time. People, and maybe that's the real cost. Maybe the real cost isn't that we fail to reach the things we aim at. Because that's not the call of this conversation. That's not the invitation of this conversation. It's not to stop reaching or stop having goals or stop dreaming. But what if the real cost is not that we fail to reach those things, because we're going to try again. That's the nature of us. What if the real cost is that we fail to fully experience life while we are reaching? What if the real cost is that we fail to fully experience life on the way to the things that we try to reach? People, if I'm absent-minded for most of my ordinary moments in life, thinking about other things, because this moment is not good enough for me to fully be in, if I'm absent-minded for all of my ordinary moments, I'm going to be absent-minded for most of my life. And then a theme, people, before we get practical in any sense. A last theme that makes this drop in a way that no other theme can is the fact that time is passing. Time is passing. Not dramatically. No. Slowly. Quietly. Another ordinary Tuesday slips by. Another day at work, another week at work. Can't believe it's weekend already. You start noticing people putting up ornaments in shops, and you hear someone whispering their surprise that they can't believe it's Christmas already. Winter turns into spring. One year becomes the next. Kids grow up. The people we love grow old. And even our own faces, when we start recognizing the fact that our own faces are changing in the mirror. Nothing stays. Everything is temporary. And I think many of us are living with the assumption that life will begin later. I still remember being a toddler, looking at teenagers, thinking to myself, goodness, can't wait to be a teenager. Look how fast they are running. Look how heavy things they can pick up. They can watch PG-13 movies. Can't wait to be a teenager. Turning into a teenager, thinking to myself, yo, can't wait to have a motorcycle or a car so I can just leave whenever I want to. Turning into an older teenager, thinking about becoming a grown-up, having a salary, having more freedom. I can eat whatever I want. I can do an all-nighter whenever I want. And then we hear grown-ups thinking about retirement. It's almost as if some of us sometimes postpone living until then. And you can think for yourself, what does your then mean? We postpone living sometimes until then. The then can be when I retire, or when I graduate, or when I have more time, when I have more energy, when this project is finished. It's almost as if we postpone living until we figure out something in our worlds. And then, because then I can relax. Then I can fully experience life. But life isn't waiting on the other side of those things. life is unfolding right now, right here, in moments that don't seem important while they are unfolding in front of us. They don't seem important. And to challenge that idea, I want to share a memory. My dad has always been a really playful and fun guy, despite being a civil engineer. So it didn't really match his personality and his job type. So being a civil engineer, strange, but he was a really fun and loving guy. And working long and stressful hours without fail, my dad would come home and he would have a smile on his face, and he would immediately drop everything and come be with us. So he would come home, he would jump on the couch, I would jump on his lap, and we would play a game, right? And it became a kind of post-workday ritual. I would sit on his lap, and then he would make a bubble with his cheek, like this, either with air or with his tongue. And then I obviously knew that my job was now to burst the bubble. So I would burst the bubble. And the moment the bubble on his cheek burst, keep in mind, I'm a really young toddler, or like toddler to 6, 7, 8 years old. The moment the bubble burst, another bubble would appear on the other side, like magic. So I would pop the bubble, and then another bubble would appear on the side. Sometimes he would be crazy and make 2 bubbles at the same time. So I would basically play whack-a-mole on my dad's face. Now, anybody listening to this story would rightly think, okay, well, Jan, what a great game you and your dad did. But it was such a profound memory for me. And I want to make a case for the ordinary moments, because I remember sitting on his lap. I remember feeling the texture of his work pants under my legs. I remember when I touched his cheek. I remember feeling the stubble of his beard after a long day of not shaving. I can still see his smile. I can still hear his laugh. But most importantly, I can still feel what he made me feel. I felt so seen. I felt so loved. And he had all the reason in the world to go lie on the couch for a while and just, put the day behind him, feet up, grab a beer, but he didn't do that. And we had countless of these moments. And I remember those moments as if they mean my childhood would not be the same without those simple moments that cost nothing except intentionality and love. And guys, of course, I'm not going to jump on my dad's lap today. I'm not going to now go and sit on my dad's lap and play the whack-a-mole game. It would be really funny if we did that, but that's obviously not going to happen. And I think because it's not going to happen again, that is what makes it special. The fact that this thing doesn't last. The fact that life and all of the aspects, big and small, within it doesn't last is exactly what gives it beauty and meaning. I want you to remember something for a moment. A day is coming. A day is coming when you are going to experience or do something for the very last time and not know it. Last moments don't always announce themselves. The day is coming when you're going to do something or experience something, or in many cases, someone, for the last time, without realizing that it's the last time. Driving around your neighborhood with that car that you love so much, not knowing, and we don't necessarily have to fill in the blank yet, but not knowing that ... A last conversation with the person you love, a last hug, a last telephone call, video call, a last handhold, The last time walking your dog around down the street, or hearing their little tick 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 nails in the hallway. People, a day is coming when even some of the simplest actions, daily actions, things we take for granted, things we don't think twice about, may no longer be easy or even become impossible to execute. Things like getting out of bed in the morning without pain, bending over, stretching up into the sky, twisting, climbing the koppie in Langhoven Park, running, full speed running. I've recently read an article that says most people never sprint full speed again after the age of 30. Can you believe it? How long ago did you full speed sprint? How long ago did you jump on a trampoline? How long ago did you stand in the rain outside and just allow yourself to get pouring wet? Maybe you've done some of these things for the last time. Maybe you'll never jump on a trampoline again. And there's nothing wrong with it. But there are events more important than trampolines. And a day is coming where you'll do everything for the last time. Maybe remembering that everything is temporary isn't supposed to scare us. Maybe it's supposed to wake us up. Because if we remember, or if we forget that time is passing, it becomes really, really, really easy to live on autopilot. When we forget this thing is passing by. When we forget that this thing is temporary, this existence we call life, when we forget that it's temporary, we rush through ordinary moments. We postpone because I'll do it later. When we forget, we do these things. We walk through them absent-minded, half-present, and we take for granted. But when we remember that this thing passes, when we remember that this thing doesn't last, something interesting starts to happen. Even the ordinary moments begin to feel slightly different. Not always magical, not always easy or mind-blowing, but raw, real, and alive in a way that you've never experienced before. Because this thing, look around your room, people, this thing, maybe there's a loved one somewhere. Look at your possessions, look at your furniture. This thing, this is not a dress rehearsal. This is life. There are no do-overs. As the teenagers would say, YOLO, right? There's no doing this thing over. This is the thing. And everything begins to change when we make a mind shift and considering the following idea. Every day that we get to be here is not another day that we get to be here, but one less day that we get to be here. Something changes in the coffee. Something changes in the walk around the block, the drive to work. People, so there's a few themes here. Temporary nature, the rushing, the fact that everything is in the ordinary. Let's take it together until this point. Where does this leave us? We have spoken about how easy it is to become focused on the next thing. And that even if we are so focused on the next thing, the experience of it doesn't last. We never really arrive. And we miss out on so much of life while rushing. We've spoken about the fact that so much, the vast majority of life occurs in the ordinary moments. We've spoken about the passing of time and the temporary nature of all of this. And then the question comes, if life is happening right now, how on earth do I stop missing it? How can I fully engage with life on the way if we can now shift our focus to this ordinary experience? Because I think what many of us are looking for is a greater sense of aliveness, to feel more awake, to feel more aware, to feel more connected, to have a more authentic experience of life. And then a massively important reality check over here. And this one rocked my chair, and it's still rocking my chair every now and then. We are speaking about living fully alive in the ordinary moments. Being fully alive in the ordinary moments is not the same as feeling good. And I fell into that trap, thinking, wow, I can see and I can feel that this thing is super overwhelming, running so fast, just going from the one thing to the next. Maybe I should slow it down. Maybe I should, live in the spaces between, thinking that it's always going to feel amazing and wonderful and exciting. But that's not how life works. Being fully alive is not the same as feeling good. And I think that's where it's so easy for us to get stuck. Because think about it. It's really easy to engage with an ordinary moment if it's interesting, fun, or meaningful. It's easy to engage with that. But once again, take it back to the list we spoke about earlier. The majority of life, the majority of ordinary life, isn't that. The majority of ordinary life is repetitive, oftentimes boring, mundane, frustrating, and we have become experts at escaping those versions of life. Anything but be with the raw, real moment of life, just the way that it is. Imagine waiting in a queue. This time, not the Department of Home Affairs. Let's put you in the traffic department, another fan favorite. You're sitting in the Department of Traffic, waiting for your license to get whatever you are doing there, your eye checks and whatever. Row number 5 at this point of day. What do you do to fill the time? Cell phone, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, go on TikTok, depending on your age and your interests. Think about driving somewhere. It's just dead space between two destinations, isn't it? Music, Spotify, podcasts. People just picture an average family dinner nowadays. Netflix. Let's watch a show. Let's watch something. So quick. We are so quick to fill the space with entertainment, with distraction. We want to be entertained so badly. Because wherever we look, wherever we turn our heads, we can simply press a button and feel really good. Why not just have more of that? People, how many of you can go to the toilet without your cell phones? And I'm not anti-technology here, people. Not anti-technology. But what if the real invitation here is not, how can I get more out of this moment? For me to fully engage in a mundane, ordinary moment, what if the invitation isn't, how can I get more out of this moment and be more entertained and have more pleasure? What if the real invitation is, how can I bring more of myself to this moment? Not what can this moment give me, but how can I bring more of myself to this moment? Like a relationship between two loved ones. Imagine one of the partners or one of the people in the relationship is just constantly taking. Give, give, give. What if we flip it around and say, what if I bring more of myself to the moment? What if that is the invitation? And I want to read you a cool quote here. What if we've been getting it backwards? Waiting for something to feel fun or meaningful or interesting before I participate or engage? What if meaning doesn't arrive first at all? What if it only shows up when I first engage? or pay attention or participate? What if the real invitation is not how do I get more out of this moment, but how do I bring more of myself to this moment? Because if I think about my life and the moments where I felt most alive, once again, I can include the birth of my child, my wedding day. I can include all of those things. When I think about the moments where I felt most alive, the common theme wasn't that they were all fabulous and wonderful and exciting and fun and pleasing. Think about the example of my father, simple moment. What they all had in common was that I was completely there. I was totally immersed in that specific moment of life. No matter what it looked and felt like, my attention was there. My awareness was there. I wasn't distracted, wasn't trying to escape or waiting for a nicer moment to come along, wasn't waiting for a different moment to come along. I was participating. What if the invitation is not how much can I get out of this moment? How much pleasure can I squeeze out of life? But how can I more fully participate in what is already happening in front of me, in the way life is already unfolding in front of me, without me having to change it, without me having to add more entertainment? How can I fully engage with this moment without it having to change for my sake? So then the question, people, becomes, how? How do we do this? Because who wants to sit in a queue at the Department of Home Affairs and not scroll through Facebook? And obviously this is an extreme situation. That's obviously also the minority of experiences, hopefully, unless you are very, very unlucky. The minority of experiences is like that. But if most of my life happens during the ordinary moments, and we've become so good at escaping those moments in many, many different ways, because it's one thing, people, to talk about. It's one thing to talk about these themes and these ideas and to understand it, but there's a massive gap between knowing and doing. There's a massive gap between seeing it, making sense, and really experiencing it for yourself. And I want to look at two practices with you, if you're open to play a little bit with me. One practice is called soft and slow. Soft and slow. And some of you might have heard of this practice before. People, and the point of this practice is simply, it's a gentle, powerful, beautiful reminder and practice to simply be where you are without having to escape it. Soft and slow. If you are willing to play along for a moment, I want you to sit back very comfortably in your chair in such a way that you don't have to use any of your body muscles to keep yourself up. So I'm not going to sit straight like this. I'm going to sit comfortably and just sit comfortable. Your muscles shouldn't have to hold you up at this point. I want you to notice your breathing. I want you to notice your breathing. And I want you to take a big inhale on your own time, and then a really long and slow exhale through your mouth. See if you can count the exhale for at least 6 seconds. And after the 6 seconds of exhale, just slow it down. Slow down the breath. You don't have to force it longer or shorter. Just let it come and go naturally, but a little bit slower and a little bit deeper. And with this soft and slow exercise, we're going to slow it down, but it's something that you can do instantaneously in real life. And I'll give an example or two now. We want to slow down movement. And we started with the breath already. We want to slow down movement. And we also want to soften the body. So we're going to go through for a quick scan through the body to notice any tension. And I'll guide you to some of the classic usual culprits, starting with your eyebrows and your forehead. Notice any squinting or frowning. simply take your awareness to your forehead and your eyebrows, and just relax. Relax your eyebrows and your forehead. You can take your attention to your jaw. If you are clenching on your teeth, or if there's any tightness in your jaw, just relax a bit. Just open up your mouth. Without opening up your mouth, your lips can still touch, but just drop your jaw slightly in a relaxed way. Relax your tongue as well. Take your awareness to your shoulders. If there's any kind of squeezing or any kind of flexing or tension, just imagine gravity pulling your shoulders down. Gently pulling your shoulders down. You can take your awareness to your tummy. Just soften your tummy. And a slow down, soft breath helps there as well. Slow down your breathing. Soften your tummy. And flex your abdominal muscles. Soften your tummy. And as you sit there with each exhale, just notice your body settling into the chair. Notice gravity settling you into your chair. While still maintaining a soft and slow breath. Now, people, we slow down this exercise, but it can happen instantaneously. This is something that you can use while driving in your car somewhere. Notice that you're gripping the steering wheel, looking at pedestrians, looking at your fellow road users. Drop the shoulders, relax the tension in your hands, sit back in your chair, breathe. Nothing else has to change. You don't have to stop driving. This is something to supplement the quality of your experience in any given moment. Thinking about washing the dishes. Scrub. Relax the shoulders. Slow the breath. Wash the dishes. Experience the dishes. Even if you're listening to a podcast or Spotify. Experience the music. Whatever you are doing, whether it's a difficult conversation with a spouse or with someone that you love or someone that you really don't love at work, same thing. Notice it tends to happen here quite quickly. Relax your forehead, relax your jaw, relax your chest and your shoulders, soften the tummy, and then continue whatever you were doing. What this exercise does very, very well, when you slow down the movement, especially when we slow down the breath, and especially when we slow down the exhale, we slow down the movement, we soften the body. That sends a very important and powerful message to the nervous system. And it says to the nervous system, everything is all right. I'm okay. Everything is all right. I don't have to flee this moment. I don't have to escape this moment. And when the nervous system relaxes, your attention and your curiosity returns to the moment. And your attention and your curiosity and your focus and your awareness returns to the moment, then it becomes possible to live fully in that moment. Once again, this can happen instantaneously. This is not a practice that has to take minutes. It can be as simple as drop everything. And especially if you practice it often, it becomes just like this. But it's a massive game changer. So that's one exercise, people. And the next one is called the 3-point return. So there are 3 steps, people. I quickly want to run you through these 3 steps. Because when it comes to being fully alive between the moments, I've found when practicing these 3 simple steps, life opens up in ways that really surprises me. So number 1 is called wake up. Notice. Wake up or notice, whichever word you resonate more with. Wake up. What does that mean? It means waking up to the fact that you are lost in thought, that you are mentally somewhere else instead of being with the thing that is right in front of you? Daydreaming? Can you notice that you are daydreaming? Can you notice that you're lost in thought? Because it's not so easy. It's not so easy to notice. It sounds like a simple step, but it's not. Picture driving somewhere. I think most of us have had this experience. If not, well done. You have great presence and awareness. Most of us have driven somewhere, reaching the destination, almost jumping, being awake and thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, how did I even get here? I can't even remember turning the car. How did I not get into 7 accidents on the way here? That is a great example of we didn't notice that we were driving. We didn't notice that we were lost in thought. And this bleeds into other areas of life as well. You know someone in your world, or you've been the person in the conversation who repeatedly says, yeah, while staring at the cell phone, having the conversation. They don't even know they are lost in thought. They don't even know that they are somewhere else. They're mentally somewhere else instead of being with what is in front of you. Step number 1, can you notice that? Massive important step. And it takes practice. It takes returning over and over again to this moment. Second step, come home. Can you practice the ability when you get lost in thought? Can you practice the ability to shift your attention back to whatever is right in front of you? Doesn't matter what it is, a conversation, driving somewhere, making dinner, folding the laundry. Can you practice the skill of shifting your focus, shifting your attention back to the thing that is right in front of you? That is step number 2. People, and third step, and this is the most difficult one of them all, stay. Don't leave. Don't leave this moment, because we know the trap at this point. The trap is it's easy for us to want to engage in ordinary moments if they are interesting and fun and meaningful. And we don't want to engage with experiences that are not that, especially in today's technological world. We want to be entertained. The invitation is here. Can you stay? Can you allow yourself to stay with this moment, regardless of what it looks and feels like? And I want you to consider the goal here, people. The goal is not, or at least, what if? A what if for you. What if the goal is not to all of a sudden become the person who loves discomfort, falls in love with everything tough and difficult and uncomfortable? What if, rather, the goal is to, at least for now, become the person who is not controlled by the need to escape the moment every time that it doesn't suit my exact needs? What if that becomes the goal? Can you stay with the moment, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable, even if it's not really that entertaining, even when it's frustrating? Can you stop trying to get away from the moment? The people, something starts to change when we practice not getting away from the moment. Not all at once. Not all at once. Not in some miracle, life-changing, one pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill moment. But slowly over time, as you reset your nervous system, as you rewire your brain, as you build new patterns of thinking about yourself and about the world, as you practice engaging with the moment, regardless of what it looks and feels like, because you know the majority of life is here, something starts to change over time. Little by little, you begin to feel a little bit more awake, more aware, more grounded. You notice that you can remember more of the day. The day starts to feel a little bit more alive. Over time, a simple cup of coffee is not just the beverage you throw down your throat. while waiting for a video call to start, or while sitting at work reading through emails. A simple coffee becomes an experience. All of a sudden, you feel the heat of the cup, or in my case, the coldness of the cup. You smell the coffee. You actually taste the coffee. It's not just a coffee anymore. It's an experience. The conversation that you have with people, so many conversations we have, so much of the time, becomes more than just you waiting for your turn to speak back at them or to lift your opinion. It becomes two human beings connecting verbally in a profound, incredible way. You notice the other person. You forget about yourself. And a sense of love and a sense of interest and a sense of curiosity starts to take over when you are really there with someone. Think about someone in your world who makes you feel really listened to. Can you think of someone like that? Do you listen to other people like that? Are you in a conversation completely immersed, completely curious, and engaged in what is being said? Do you really listen? That becomes possible. The drive home, like we spoke about earlier, a drive home is more than just dead space between destinations. It turns into a sightseeing experience. You notice the sunrise and the form of the clouds. You notice the other people in the car with you, trying to tell you about their day. A car ride becomes an event. Because one day there's not going to be anybody in the car with you. One day you're going to drive your kids to school for the last time. Every single one of these experiences that can be mundane, depending on the story we tell ourselves about it, or the judgment we have over ourselves or the person or the situation, can be miserable. Or it can be the essence of being alive. People, and I want to take it together by saying, please dream big, have your goals, work towards them, be creators, bold, be creative, have massive, massive checkpoints that you're working towards. But do not forget to live fully while you are reaching those checkpoints. Don't abandon life on the way there. Because if we miss out in the spaces between those highlights, those Instagrammable pedestal moments, you're going to miss out on almost all of life. One day we're going to look back and realize. One day we're going to look back and realize that although there were many big, beautiful moments, the majority of life was made up of thousands. And we can actually just put any number in here because we don't know the exact number. We can say millions, hundreds of thousands of ordinary moments in between them. And the ordinary moments is not the spaces between life's biggest moments. The ordinary moments is life. And that's all that I have to say to you tonight. Vleit, my story.
Oh, thanks, Ian. It was so good, so good. For me, the two words that stand out is intentional about life, intentional moments. So thanks a lot, Ian. I will share his details on the group so that you can contact him. You know, he is an inspiring person and really helps us to see life through a different perspective. And just one 30-second story from my side. When my father-in-law was in ICU 10 days, he was in 10 days in ICU and there was no hope. He eventually died there. That was a moment for me to be intentional, to say that I'm here in this moment because this moment is sacred. And it was
Yeah.
actually a normal moment that actually stand out. We had nothing to do but to sit there and be intentional being in this moment. So yeah, thanks so much for giving us the tools, soft and slow, and the 3-point to return. Thanks a lot. That really makes a difference in all our lives, and we really appreciate that tonight. Thanks a lot. Anybody wants to ask Ian something? Okay, so I think we will also share this tomorrow with you on the group. If you signed up, you will receive the recording as well as the recipe of tonight and Ian's details. But again, Ian, thanks a lot for joining us tonight and sharing all your wisdom with us. We really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was lovely to spend some time with you.
Okay, thanks, Ian. And thank you, ladies. Have a beautiful week, and I hope you have a fantastic month. We see you then next month in July after the schools open for our next light hour. Thanks a lot for joining us. Thank you, Ian. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye, everybody.
you.
Bye.
Bye, Dankie.
Thank you,
Bye.
Ian. Thank you.
Bye, Ilse.
Bye.
Bye, julle. Lekker aand.
Ja,
Lekker aan.
Thanks.
Bye.